Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Dr. Khan once again, and in today's video I'm going to talk about a few tips that I'm going to give you in order to help you study for an exam. So tip number one, in my opinion, is that you need to understand the significance of an exam when you're trying to study for it. And when it comes to NEB exams or any exams, you first need to understand that what is the significance of it. In my opinion, step one exam has greater significance in a lot of for many reasons. Reason number one, that it's the first exam in a series of exams that you have to take. And God forbid, if you fail this exam, that is very demoralizing and demeaning. And it is very challenging and very frustrating to have to study the same material over and over again. That's why I recommend that you get to know and understand the significance of this exam. Second reason why this exam is significant is because you have to study a lot more material for this exam as opposed to step two, which is clinical based. And we all know that there are many courses that are our nemesis. Some people do not like histology, embryology, for some people it's biochemistry, and many of these courses that you do not need to know for step two, you only need to know them for step one. So if I was you, I would try my best to study for it as much as I can to get it over with within the first time. Okay, so that's understanding the significance. So step one is very significant because I don't know how many of you function, but I'm the type of person who works with positive reinforcement. What does that mean? It means that once I do really well in one exam, then it motivates me to continue to do more. And on the other end, if I do not do well in something, it discourages me, and it takes me a lot of additional effort and energy to do something over again that I have not been successful at. Therefore, one thing to know is that to understand the gravity of it and to try to ace it or try to pass it in the first attempt. Tip number two that I would recommend to you is that you all know that you have to take this exam. So being informed, understanding that you have to take this exam is very important. And secondly, being aware that you have to take this exam, so why not study for it from day one? When it comes to USMLE step one, the way we are trained, we're told that you have to study for this exam from day one, because entire medical school is all about passing the boards, because going through medical school only gets you a degree, which is a qualification, and qualification allows you to sit for these board exams that allow you to get licensed. So when we went to school, we were told from the very first day that you really need to study for the board exam. So that's my tip number two. Tip number three would be to use the right resources for your learning style. So everybody has different learning style, and this is what I tell my students as well when they come to me, is that try to use as many resources as you possibly can, and different mediums as well. I'm somebody who needs to read a full story. So I have to read the entire book and then summarize it, because reading the entire book will allow me to understand the concepts. Once I have the concepts out of the way, and then I can read a summarized version, and I will know what the full story is, and therefore then I can study from my exam's point of view, where I'll be able to understand the summarized version. Secondly, what do I mean by using different mediums? What basically means that we're in a modern tech era where everything is available on YouTube. So if you are not able to understand a topic, you just go onto Google or even go onto YouTube, and then you type the title, and you can even put in animation. So a lot of biochemical pathways that I personally learned were from YouTube, even during my medical school life as well. So that's what I mean by using different mediums, because some people, it is very hard for them to conceptualize everything. Right? You read it off of the book, and not everybody has the same type of imagination, great imagination. If you had great imaginations, we would be artists, we would be story writers, would be songwriters, but not a lot of doctors or people like us do not have great imagination. And there's nothing wrong with not having great imagination. That's why we have to aid our imagination to understand certain things, particularly when it comes to things that are at microscopic level, which includes your biochemical pathways. Trying to understand something that is at biochemical level, you need to have either great imagination or you need assistance. So go on YouTube and look for all these videos and just type the title, and right next to it you put animation, and it will bring up a lot of relevant videos, and you look through many of them and find the one that explains you the best. It is much better than trying to memorize something off of the paper. Like in Pakistan, I don't know why a lot of students think that they need to rectify everything. They need to just memorize everything word to word. That is not how you're going to do well in exam, because if you memorize something without understanding it, and when it comes to getting multiple choice questions, they could modify the question just slightly and you might not be able to understand it. So that's why concepts are important. You need to understand how pathways work. You need to understand how one thing leads to another. That was my tip number 3. Tip number 4 that I would tell you is to stay on track. You might have a perfect schedule. You might be reading through books. You might be trying to do all kinds of things to aid you in studies. However, you need to see it reflected in your grades. So if you're in medical school, you really need to see how you're performing in your test, on your quizzes. And if you're not doing well, that indicates that you will have a problem later on. So the sooner you tackle the problem, the better off you are. So if I was you, I would go right ahead and see if I'm not doing well in a course, I would try to change the strategy that I had deployed in studying for that exam. And then finally, tip number 3 that I would recommend to you is that when you're studying for an exam, don't just study the topics. It is very important to do some practice exams. And maybe for step 1 of NEB exam, you do not have practice exam, and that's why you get these MCQ or multiple choice question books. And the way I do multiple choice questions, even though the answers are written right below it, I usually cover the answer. I just do the questions and then I cover the answer. So question, cover the answer. I write my own answer on the side. So you have the question number, answer in front of it, question number, answer in front of it. And then at the end, I try to compare and see how many questions I got right and how many I got wrong. And the ones that I got wrong, I would go back to them and try to review those topics, because clearly I got it wrong because I did not have mastery over that topic. So I highly recommend that you follow some of these tips in order to study for your exam. And once again, try to utilize anything that works for you. Don't just try to read off of the book. Even writing style of certain textbook is not very friendly. I have read many books in Pakistan, and it's so frustrating to read those books and try to understand the concept, because they just write it in such a circular manner. And when it comes to understanding these very critical topics, I recommend they use different sources. Go on the internet. I mean, we're so fortunate that we're in an era with so much technology. So these are the tips that I have for you to try to make your life easier when you're studying for step 1 exam. And stay tuned for next video.